After Takeoff's funeral on November 11th, popular hip-hop reporter DJ Akademiks gave insight on how Takeoff truly passed away. Also, during Takeoff's funeral, Quavo's speech also mentioned something that connects to what happened during Takeoff's passing. These both give us a new insight on how he truly passed and who may be responsible. Here's what DJ Akademiks had to say.
Quavo says, you know what? I'm gonna walk off. He's like, yo, let's go. But I'm gonna also be honest, he says something that I think could have incited the whole thing. Not that necessarily is his fault. He says, man, let me get on it. Let me get up on out of here before I hurt somebody. And when you think about all these situations, like Quavo says that, I think that sets in motion, granted, the argument sets everything in motion, but him walking away and saying that, I think someone acted on behalf of whoever he was arguing with. The guy with the either seen someone else brandish, he pulled out his, Quavo's already out the mix, so he's back there, the melee's here, Takeoff is still in the middle.
Now before you hear Quavo's speech, you need to hear the new evidence on who may have did this. As Quavo's sister posted on her Instagram, and I quote, "Find out who did this to my nephew, by any means." Now, it wasn't long until millions of people online started scanning through all of the surveillance and camera footage from the night that he sadly passed. There was a few camera angles that tell a completely new story. Now, on a Halloween night, Quavo, alongside Takeoff, met up with a driver for their vehicle, as well as another man named Migobands. The four of these individuals were all invited to an event hosted by J. Prince Jr. in Houston, Texas. Now, Migobands, who is seen in all of their Instagram stories throughout the night, actually is one of the suspects in the case of Takeoff's passing. Now, Instagram stories piece together a day of events for these four individuals, with them starting at a get-together event hosted by J. Prince Jr., where Quavo and Takeoff were seen performing a few songs at the beginning of the night to host the event. Once the performing was over, the two Migos rappers were then seen heading to an after-party room where games were played in exchange for cash, as well as just small meetings with business reps and music reps. Now, while at the after party, here's where we meet suspect number 2. This suspect's name is Cam, as Cam is known for many street-related acts in Atlanta, and sources believe that Quavo knew this. This is why this photo is taken of Quavo, giving Cam a very ugly look while playing table games in exchange for cash. Now, Cam is seen wearing a yellow sweater during this after party, and he wore this same sweater throughout the entire night. It's important to remember that. Now, after this was complete and the event was practically over, Quavo, Takeoff, and Migobands were then seen walking through a shopping center in Houston, Texas. This was also in a lump sum of 50 people that were all friends and acquaintances of J. Prince Jr., as most of these individuals were also attending the event earlier in the night. Now, inside of the shopping center is a bowling alley called 810 Billiards and Bowling Houston. There was up to 50 people outside of this location, standing around in a circle, continuing to play games of dice for cash as they were doing earlier in the night. Now, while watching people play dice, a man walks up to Quavo. This mystery man, who still remains nameless as stated by DJ Akademiks at the start of the video, walks over to Quavo and starts mocking him for the way that he played during a celebrity basketball game. Now, Quavo is seen arguing back and forth with this individual, and with Quavo arguing, Takeoff is seen roughly 4 to 6 feet behind Quavo, standing around and watching people play dice. With things starting to escalate, Quavo is seen on TMZ video stating, "Man, I don't care about no basketball game," as the setting at this event was starting to get very heated. Now, at this current moment, Cam in the yellow sweater is then seen walking towards Quavo. Once reaching where Quavo is standing, he stood there, standing beside Quavo and this mystery man arguing, listening, and almost like he's plotting something. With the yelling starting to escalate, this is where we see Migobands start walking towards the massive group of people. Now, you can tell this is Migobands from the shirt, Gucci bag, single chain, and snapback hat that he was wearing earlier in the night inside of Quavo's vehicle, as shown in many Instagram stories. Now Migobands makes his way through the group of people. He stands beside Takeoff before then standing beside Quavo, trying to understand what is going on. Now footage reveals that Migobands, he was standing there wondering what's happening for around 2 minutes. Meanwhile, Takeoff still wasn't paying much attention at the time, but he was understanding what was about to go down, as Quavo was still arguing very loudly with this mystery man. Now with Quavo done arguing, he begins saying that he's done with this guy and to get away from him. This is where Quavo then turns his back and starts walking away from the individual. As the new camera footage revealed, once Quavo turned his back and begins walking away, the man that he was arguing with then swings towards Quavo. He did miss Quavo, but this caused Takeoff to take 2 steps forward to back up Quavo. And with Quavo leaving and Takeoff kinda taking his spot where he was standing, Cam in the yellow sweater is then seen allegedly pulling his firearm from out of his yellow hoodie, and while he's pulling his firearm out, Migobands is then seen also pulling his firearm out from out of his jeans pocket. Allegedly, it is not known who used their firearm first, but whoever used it first, the other then started retaliating, and firearms were used 9 to 10 times, where Takeoff was sadly then affected by firearms twice. Now the witnesses at the scene claim that Migobands affected Takeoff, and I'll be sharing that witness's statement here in a moment. But with the sounds of a firearm being used, the 50 lump sum of people standing all started sprinting away, hopping over the mall benches and even sprinting out of the exit doors. Everybody was running wild. Meanwhile, sadly, Takeoff is then seen on the floor of the mall with Quavo standing right by his side. Now it was at this current moment where Quavo was trying everything possible to get Takeoff help, but sadly, it was too late. Now, did the argument that Quavo was having with this mystery individual cause this? Maybe, but you cannot blame Quavo for how this happened, as while Takeoff was affected by 2 strays and firearms were used 9 to 10 times, everybody was sprinting out of the mall. Meanwhile, Quavo knew Takeoff was affected. He stood there while firearms were being used and stayed beside his brother all the way until the end. He did not leave Takeoff for 1 single second, and that is something that you definitely have to respect Quavo for. Now, before sharing the exclusive witness's statement, you need to hear what Quavo said at Takeoff's funeral.
You always with me, and we did everything together. Since we was kids, you been by my side, looking up at me with them eyes. Same eyes you got as my sister. Waiting on me to make the next move, then you followed up right behind me. You always made sure I did it first, so you can do it right with me. You never competed with me. We was always on the same team because you hated playing against me because I always played too hard or too rough. And I can hear mama saying, not too rough, son. Remember our first dream was to be tag team partners in the WWE. We fell in love with WWE wrestling. We had every...
Now, during Quavo's message, he states after, and I quote, "Takeoff is super quiet though, quietest in the room, but paid attention to everything going on in the room. He's always been like that. Nothing ever really bothered Take, and he didn't bother anybody." Now, remember that part of the message as it relates to this witness's statement. Now, a female that was actually at the scene and was seen standing beside Takeoff moments before this happened, she tweeted just hours after the incident, and I quote, "I'ma speak on this because I feel like I have to. I was right there, next to Takeoff. They wasn't arguing about a dice game. Quavo was pressed and Takeoff was hit by strays as firearms were used for no reason. Rest in peace, Takeoff. He didn't deserve that. He was to himself the whole night." Now, this tweet also had text messages attached to it by people are assuming was one of her friends that were maybe standing closer in the pile of people. Now, the text messages read, and I quote, "Firearms just started ringing, but they were coming from somebody the Migos was with. But he was using his firearm wild, and he hit Takeoff on accident. Then the other people started using their firearms back, and I think he got hit again. But ultimately, it was his own guys who did it to him, because when he got hit the first time, I saw it. Quavo was mad over some small stuff, and it really wasn't worth it. Takeoff was the coolest and quietest guy in that room the whole time. He didn't say a word, just chilling in the cut. He didn't even know what was going on, he just got it." Now, in the text messages, the witness claims that the person who first used the firearm and that affected affected Takeoff came from one of his own men. Now, at the start of the video, I shared that Quavo was rolling with Takeoff, Migobands, and a driver. The driver wasn't inside of the mall, and Migobands was seen on footage holding a firearm. Now, you do also need to hear Offset speaking out about Takeoff at his funeral.
Change the culture of music forever. You did that, Tate. You changed that flow. That flow came from Tate, the originator. He the originator of that flow. He changed the music. Lord, give us the strength. Just give us the strength. The family, everybody, give us some strength. I don't want to question you, God, but I don't get it. I don't get you sometimes. And I believe in you, Father. Change the culture of music forever. You did that, Tate.
Now, with Takeoff and Quavo giving their reactions, this is where we saw many rappers in the music industry sharing love and support for Takeoff, and these reactions are important to see. So let's get straight into Boosie's reaction.
R.I.P. Takeoff, bro. Shaking my head, man. Humble. That music syndicate won't show QC, all the family. We sending some prayers and love for y'all. All Takeoff family, Quavo, Offset, all y'all. That music syndicate won't, send their prayers out. This rap whack, bro. I ain't lying, bro. We targets now, bro. We used to be heroes, Everybody want us out of here, bro. R.I.P. Takeoff.
Now, this even then led into Master P's reaction on his Instagram.
And hip-hop is too young. Rest in peace to Takeoff. My condolences goes out to Takeoff family, Quavo, man, all my soldiers and soldierettes. Hip-hop has turned to the new streets. We used to be in the streets trying to get into hip-hop, which is crazy. When you walk out your house, tell your loved ones you love them, because you never know who might not come back. And no matter how old or young you are, it's crazy. I love y'all soldiers and salute to everybody. Let's save the next generation.
Now, I'm curious to know your guys' reaction to Takeoff sadly passing, and how do you believe it truly happened? If you're a fan of Takeoff, leave a like on the video. I'm curious how many fans are watching today.